Okay, I think we can get started. Good evening, everyone. My name is Jose Diaz. I'm the Chief Curator at the Andy Warhol Museum, and I'm so happy you can all join us this evening. This is actually our first program since we've closed because of the COVID pandemic. And just so you know, the museum's actually reopened. So if you get a chance to visit us, I'll talk about that a little bit later. But tonight's program, Art in Context, Women's Work, it's a panel featuring artists Naomi Chambers, Christina Dolores, Christina Lee, and Angela Washko, and it will be moderated by Andrea Stanford. This discussion will explore the challenges and opportunities facing women in the arts, including the ways that the changing context of the pandemic and the Black Lives Matter movement has impacted women in the Pittsburgh community. Art in Context is a free public program that usually takes place in our theater. It is a series that's inspired by our exhibitions, and we invite artists, scholars, and community leaders to get together to consider creative expression in relation to timely political and social concerns. This virtual program is inspired by our new exhibition, Femme Touch, which centers around the lives and artistic careers of 9 women and femmes who held sway in Warhol's court. As a show within a show, the museum's galleries introduce historical individuals that have been overlooked in retellings of Warhol's narrative. The exhibition also brings forth never before seen materials from the museum's extensive archives and newly digitized films. From transgender icons, members of the underground scene, to the artist's mother and his would-be assassin, women and femmes in Warhol's world played crucial roles in every area of his life and practice. Andy Warhol presided over a permissive creative environment that welcomed and celebrated individuals who did not adhere to prevailing norms around gender and sexuality. Queer and trans people, drag queens, radical feminists, and androgynous beauties all found a home at his factory. Here they hit upon fertile ground to express their identities and artistic impulses. At the same time, Warhol never acted as a guardian or caretaker to the members of his circle and did little to protect them against competition and exploitation. In highlighting these individuals in Femme Touch, their talents and achievements have been diminished in the shadow of Warhol and by history itself, and we acknowledge that they flourished in the era of inequality and social change. As our nation continues its collective reckoning over the rights and treatment of women and femmes, Femme Touch centers the lives and artistic careers of some of the most fascinating feminine forces that shape Warhol's world. The exhibition is now on view through January 2021, so you have plenty of time to check it out. Please visit warhol.org for more details about the exhibition. We're doing time tickets, and we also have increased our safety measures, so I encourage you at some point if you'd like to check out the Warhol. For tonight's program, I want to thank all the participants. I'm so thrilled that they're all here, and I'm delighted that you can join us. Special thanks to my colleagues Danielle Linzer and Sarah Kim, and finally to our sponsors, Bank of America and Stephen Allen Bennett and Dr. Elaine Melody Schmidt, founders of the Bennett Collection of Women Realists. Before we begin Art in Context Women's Work, I'd like to formally introduce our moderator, Andrea Stanford. As Vice President, Pittsburgh Regional Manager at BNY Mellon, Stanford works closely with the Chairman of BNY Mellon of Pennsylvania to oversee the firm's employee and community engagement, communications and government affairs activities. She previously worked for Allegheny County, serving as Assistant County Manager as well as Senior Advisor to the county's Department of Human Services. During her tenure, Stanford worked across federal, state, and local government to lead major initiatives, including the region's preparation for the 2020 census. Prior to her work in the public sector, Andrea managed digital strategy and media relation efforts at PNC Financial Services, Inc., and UPMC, respectively. Stanford is community-minded and volunteers with local nonprofit organizations in the Pittsburgh region. She serves on the board of directors for the YWCA Greater Pittsburgh, the YMCA Greater Pittsburgh, and the Women and Girls Foundation of Southwestern Pennsylvania. She holds a Bachelor of Science degree in Business Administration from the University of Pittsburgh and is part of the current cohort of the Advanced Leadership Initiative at Carnegie Mellon University's Tepper School of Business. Without further ado, I'd like to welcome Andreas Efford.
Thank you so much, Jose. Welcome to all of our audience participants. Thank you so much for your time this evening. We're going to have a wonderful dialogue with some amazing artists making an impact here in the Pittsburgh community and beyond. As Jose mentioned, this is a timely conversation, and we'd be remiss if we didn't acknowledge the global pandemic affecting our community, as well as the what's been termed the pandemic within the pandemic, this crying out of racial justice, and this centering of racial equity, inclusivity, especially for Black and Brown voices. We're excited for this panel where you'll hear from dynamic artists who are making an impact locally. So to give you a flavor for tonight's event, we're gonna hear 4 artists who will spend 10 minutes talking about their work, their artistry, and what they're doing individually to change the art scene. After the 10-minute artist talks, we're going to transition the discussion to a Q&A, a moderated discussion. So we want this to be a dialogue. If you have questions as the artists are giving their talks, drop them into the chat box. Our team, our fabulous team at the our fabulous team at the Andy Warhol Museum will be triaging questions, and we want to make sure that your voices are heard. So by all means, share your questions, and we'll be sure to address them in the Q&A portion following the artist talks. I also want to make reference that this talk does have closed captioning. So a link is going to be added to the chat box just now. Thanks, Jose. For those of you who want to use closed captioning to follow along the dialogue, we certainly want you to do so. So let's get into it. The first artist talk is with Christina Lee. She is a Korean-American illustrator, zine maker, printmaker, designer, and animator. Christina has been on the Pittsburgh art scene since 2014, and her illustrations have been featured on NPR, Teen Vogue, Public Source, American Greetings, and Penguin Books, to name a few. She's also an organizer of the Pittsburgh Zine Fair. Through her curatorial projects, Christina highlights underrepresented people, specifically female and non-binary artists. I'm going to ask Christina to start sharing her screen and welcome Christina to the floor to begin her artist talk. Thanks, Christina.
Thanks for that intro, Andrea. Let me share my screen because I have a little bit of a presentation to share with you guys. So, my name is Christina, and I'm a Korean-American animator, illustrator, printmaker based in Pittsburgh by way of San Jose, California. And, hold on. There we go. Here is some of the work that I've done through the past few years. Select clients include Vice, Penguin Books, Pittsburgh City Paper, NPR, Teen Vogue, and them. Although I primarily identify as an illustrator, I have started to develop a curatorial practice that focuses on underrepresented voices in the arts. And I'm here to tell you my journey towards doing that. So I'll start from way, way back. Growing up, much like Andy Warhol, I was consumed by media. I devoured anything written by the Beats. I obsessively listened to ska punk and indie rock. And I deeply admired movie directors like Michel Gondry and Spike Jonze. Almost everything I was consuming at that time was created by white men. And I don't think I was fully conscious of this at the time, but I think in the back of my brain, I was wondering, where are all the women? Fast forward to 2014, and I'm a recent graduate of art school. I'm a painting TA for a pre-college program, and the instructor asked me to discuss 3 of my favorite painters with the students. I list David Hockney, Alex Katz, and Matisse. In response, he says, "Wow, your choices are very white and male." I was an Asian woman and recent art school graduate, and I couldn't list any non-white female painters. This is when I realized there was a problem. Why was almost everything that I was consuming created by white men? So here are a few numbers. In the US, women earn 70% of BFA and 75% of MFA degrees. So there is a large amount of women going to art school. However, only 46% of working artists are women. So what is happening to the 25%? Where are they going if they're not identifying as working artists after they graduate? A recent survey of prominent US museums found that the represented artists were 87% male and 85% white. So no surprise there. a lot of the higher art institutions in America are prominently white and male. And this last statistic for me was the most surprising one. 13.7% of living artists represented by galleries in North America and Europe are women. So a very, very small amount of living artists that are represented by galleries in North America and Europe are women. So I took it upon myself to educate myself to learn more about women artists and to also amplify voices of women in the arts through any platform that I could possibly get my hands on. I started by to understand the power of representation in curation when I started to organize the Pittsburgh Zine Fair in 2015. The Pittsburgh Zine Fair is an annual event that exhibits artists who create any form of independently published printed matter, such as zines, prints, mixtapes, journals, comics. Here's an example of what that printed matter could be. This is a spread of prints and zines that I would usually sell at zine fairs like this. I served as an organizer from 2015 to 2019, and I was in charge of marketing. Here are a few posters in the past 3 years. Whenever we would select the artists to create the poster, we would make sure to select a female femme identifying artist or a non-white artist to create the poster. We were thinking end-to-end, not only in curation of the event, but also in terms of the marketing materials. From left to right, that is a poster by Jen Lisa in 2017. In 2018, the middle poster is the one that I created, and in 2019, far right is a poster by Jason Lee. The most challenging decision that we would make every year was deciding on who to admit to the fair. Each year, the fair would scale up in number of applicants and attendees, and last year we had over 200 applicants and over 800 attendees. And artists don't only apply from Pittsburgh, they apply from all over the world. We've gotten applicants from Los Angeles, New York City, DC, Richmond, from all over. As a group, we wanted the event to be reflective of the ethos of the zine, all-encompassing, diverse, and inclusive. While prioritizing inclusivity, we would ask questions such as, do we prioritize exhibitors who have exhibited before or new exhibitors? Do we prioritize zine makers from in town or out of town? All of these questions were really challenging. And through these valuable experiences, I learned how important it is to be a curator that champions inclusivity. In June 2018, I curated my first exhibit at Future Tenant in downtown Pittsburgh titled I'm Not With Him. On display for 2 months during the Three Rivers Arts Festival, this exhibit explored the female gaze through female femme-identifying artists who worked in non-traditional mediums such as embroidery. So on the left is Katrina May Cutt, and on the right is Hannah Epstein. The left is embroidered female contraceptive, and the right is just sort of like a cheeky tongue-in-cheek statement on art making. And Jemay Nee, who is a female, Black American female documentary photographer who works in Pittsburgh, and this is from her documentary series documenting the lives of Black women in the Hill District. And this is Jenna, who now goes by Jay Houston's photographic installation work of queer people in Pittsburgh. To subvert the male gaze, I put the exhibitors' names front and center on the poster to emphasize the focus on the artists. In addition to featuring the work of the exhibitors, I included a zine library with 17 additional female femme-identifying artists that attendees could read and purchase from the gallery. I'm Not With Him was featured in the Pittsburgh City Paper, the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette, and the Pitt News, and $900 worth of zines were sold from the exhibition. It was empowering to give female artists a platform to promote their work through the zine library and exhibition. I followed up I'm Not With Him with another female femme focused group exhibition hosted at Pullproof Studio titled Mirror Mirror. Mirror Mirror was co-curated with Emma Vecchio and on display through the month of September as a part of Unblurred, the monthly Garfield art crawl. This exhibition was a little bit different because it focused on the art of illustration instead of different non-traditional mediums. Although it was in a physically smaller space, it was also actually quite larger in scale. I featured 19 different artists from Pittsburgh, Philadelphia, Cincinnati, and Kansas City. And I also featured a merchandise table that attendees could purchase zines, clothing, and other assorted artist goods from. The closing reception featured a performance by queer local musician Merce Lemon and a DJ set by Formosa. I made sure to hire female femme-identifying musical talent to go along with the exhibition. At the end, I sold $1,600 in merchandise and art, and it was covered by Make Muse magazine and the Pittsburgh City paper. Most importantly, I created a platform for a diverse range of female femme-identifying illustrators and connected other like-minded artists with each other through this exhibition. Moving forward, I will be continuing my curatorial work by creating a small press called All Right Press. Here's the Instagram. Similar to I'm Not With Him and Mirror Mirror, All Right Press will collaborate with emerging and underrepresented artists to create zines, art books, and printed editions. Watch this space. There will be more to come. After doing some self-education, since this question was asked 6 years ago, I would love to go back and answer that question posed to me by that painting instructor with these 3 incredible artists. Chantal Martin, a British artist based in New York City, known for her large-scale black and white paintings. She's collaborated with Airbnb, Kendrick Lamar, and she performs many of her pieces for a live audience. Hilma af Klint, a Swedish artist who's active in the 20th century, whose paintings were, to the current art community, the first Western abstract art. A large body of her work predates Kandinsky, who used to be regarded as the pioneer of abstract art. Now it's her. It's a woman, guys. And lastly, Lynette Bocce, a British painter based in London who paints fictitious subjects in muted colors. She won the Turner Prize in 2013, and you also may recognize her work from the 2019 Carnegie International. She actually won the Carnegie Prize, which is the top honor for best painting in the international. Through curation and publishing, I hope to continue to provide a platform for underrepresented artists and work towards building a better, more equitable arts community in Pittsburgh and beyond. Thank you so much.
Excellent. Christina, thanks so much for sharing your journey. It's great to see the work that you've been doing and how you've created space when you didn't see that representation yourself. All right, for those of you who are just joining, we just heard from Christina Lee. We are doing a panel share out and report we're doing an artist talk. Each artist is featuring 10 minutes. And the next artist we have will be Naomi Chambers, who is a Pittsburgh-based painter and assemblage artist. She currently runs the Flower House, which is a creative space in Wilkinsburg, cultivated by group-centered artists who practice cooperative economics to empower women and families. Naomi is leading the launch of Sybil Shrine, which is a new residency programming, offering technical and professional development opportunities for Black mothers who identify as artists, creatives, and activists. Naomi, we're excited to have you for tonight's discussion. The floor is yours. Feel free to share your screen.
Hi, everyone. Hopefully this works out for all this stuff. All right. And okay. I don't know. And does everyone see my screen? All right. So this is my mother, and she is the reason why I'm an artist. I know that for a fact.
Hey, Naomi, I don't think we can see your screen just yet. So,
okay, hold on.
No, you're good. We want to make sure that we can see the presentation you prepared. And as you're working on that, for those who have questions, by all means, submit your questions via the chat box. We're making sure to collect any comments or feedback or questions that you have for the artists featured towards the end of the panel discussion.
Yikes. You guys might have to skip me. Let me see.
Okay.
All right, does you see now? We're good?
You're good.
Okay. All right, so this is my mother. My mother was an artist, and she is the reason why I became an artist, much like Andy Warhol. She had a rule that anything we started, we had to finish. Projects, programs, sports. She was really into us experiencing new things and seeing them through. So I know for a fact that she was like the reason. This is my last painting that I did in undergrad. It is important to me because it's the painting that kind of solidified my aesthetic for me. I was trying to figure out who I was as an artist. I was steeped in women professors at the University of Pittsburgh, Stundon, who taught me how to see things and draw them out correctly. Comanderos was a teacher that I had that taught me how to respect the earth and use products that were good for me and for other people. So I cringe when I still use resin. I will one day find a way to get something that doesn't kill me. Weisberger, who helped me decide on my aesthetic and to trust my instinct and my style. And then I had teachers like Thomas and Lee, Bovie Lee, who were interested in me not cutting corners. I will run through this quickly. These are some of the themes that I work with. There's so many. I'm not good at editing, as you can see. And if you see my artwork, you also can tell. But these are the themes that I work with as a woman. So there's lots of creator themes, nutrition, motherhood, healing. Disney was a huge part of my aesthetic growing up. We watched like all the Disney movies. My mom would just buy them for us. And so that was like something that was pressed in my head. And then plenty of storybooks. More themes that you'll find in my work. Some movies that I like. I'm kind of like a fake prepper. We'll talk more about that later. Really big on love. More things. Wendy Williams, Sesame Street, Shade Room. Really big on gossip, but that's because I've realized that it's something that we all pay attention to. We're all interested in other people's business when we really should just be worried about helping each other. A big thing that became a part of my work, I'll say probably about 2015. I was trying to eat and live and figure this whole art thing out. And I just felt like it was going to be the death of me to continue to be an artist. And I had to figure out a way to survive. And then looking around at my other art friends, if I was looking outside of my race, outside of my Black friends, I saw that my white friends were having a little bit of an easier time. They were able to acquire things. They had more help, more support. And I was just struggling as a young Black woman artist. And so a lot of themes are survival in my work, and then just dealing with the day-to-day struggles. This picture is important to me. My sister-in-law is also an artist, and she has brought many things into my life. One is she mined this when she was pregnant. These are all gemstones that she placed on my porch and washed off, just like her audacity has been present in my life as well. This is a poster that was at the Dollar Tree, excuse me. I frequent Family Dollar, Dollar Tree, Walmart, the stores that I probably like really tell you that I love, just because it allows me to get things that I need. And to see something like this present and advertising to low-income communities was exciting for me. Bambi. This is how I see myself as an artist. It's kind of like this weird dichotomy where I feel like I'm just super struggling all the time, but then I also see the magic in my lifestyle and hoping to create work that merges the two of them so that other people can see just the beauty in being a Black woman, But also to know that, like, yeah, I need help. And yes, I'm working hard to live and maintain. I love this picture. I found it on Google. It was like a stock photo. I just always enjoy it because it's literally how I wish to present myself. Yes, I'm angry, but I'm smiling. This is an ode to my mother, who taught me how to use reusable materials, which is something that is heavy in all of my work. That was in our refrigerator, and it never had margarine in it, like never. This is one of my light sculptures that I created. I found this television in Homewood in like a heap of garbage, and it was just glinting and glaring and just beautiful. And I picked it up and smashed out the screen and created a diorama. Yeah. This is another light sculpture that I created. It's about nutrition and nurturing. So there's always themes of light and nurturing in my brand of womanhood. This picture is important to me because in 2012, I went to China. In 2012, I graduated in 2009 from undergrad, University of Pittsburgh. 2012, I went to China for the first time, and it kind of changed the way that I wanted to move. I was not making art the way I needed to. And being there and seeing so many people that had less than me, but making the most of it and making no excuses was really important for me to see. And it kind of jump-started my career. These are some sandals that I got there. I wore them till they fell apart because I just loved them so much. But everything there, all of their everyday items brought such joy. And I liked that aspect of having things or creating things that brought joy. This was the first solo show I did when I came back, guns loaded. I was just like, I don't care. I need to get started. And I did. That's my bestie. She's also a super influence in my work. My work deals a lot with poetic narratives. This is my partner. He is also an artist. Our union has brought lots of otherness to my work. I was lots of feminine situation. Now I'm more family and womanist. This is Brown Baby. She's very important because she taught me how to be a mother. I loved Brown Baby before I had a baby. Brown Baby is just all the Black and brown children of the world. And just celebrating mothering and talking about how natural it is and awesome. And it's more than just birthing someone. It's more than just a woman. It's everything. It's just the whole idea of creation. And so I just love being a mother. This is one iteration of Brown Baby. I hope to create a kawaii brand based off of Brown Baby so that Black and brown children will have something to enjoy, like I enjoyed Hello Kitty and Minnie Mouse. This is my little brown baby. This is me working with my little brown baby. This is me giving birth to another brown baby. This is my brown baby. His name is Dindy. More themes of womanhood and girlhood always present in my work. And throughout the generations, I love women, young, babies, older. They've just all enriched me. My nieces have such an influence on me now, like all ages. Women just inform me and just make me a better person. This is my mother. I talked about how nurturing was big and nourishment was big in my work. She always made us feel special. Every birthday, she would make us these big lavish meals. And see all my brothers and sisters, so. Nourishment again. Free People Food Program from the Black Panthers. Black Panthers is just what they mean to me is larger than life. I hope to one day be able to help people in the way that many of them were. They're not a perfect group of people, but they mean a lot, and they will for generations to come. This is Flower House. Me and my partner Darnell were able to get with a group of people, a collective of other artists who wish to have more visibility here in Pittsburgh as Black artists, and to create a space for the Black community here in Pittsburgh to have access to and explore the arts. It's an arts education program, and we don't have a physical space right now, but we're open to pop-ups. I wish to, when I start to put energy back into it, have it be something that we just don't have currently in Pittsburgh. These are pictures from inside Flower House. We had events. People were able to come in and learn. We worked with different groups in Wilkinsburg, children's groups. We taught them how to take free things and create stickers or whatever they wanted to. This is some of the youth in the space. We had meetings, exhibitions, Skilolo. This is a collage night that Dakari used to hold in the space. It was our biggest event, most consistent event. And I miss just gathering with different people on a weeknight. Ben Jones. This is a family Thanksgiving meal that was in the space. This is my family. They were able to come from all over the country, and just to have a space that was our own meant a lot to me, and I can't not wait to realize that again. Movie night and pop-up events. Communal Future is my last exhibition, solo exhibition that I had, that allowed me to work and try to figure out how to help Black people in Pittsburgh realize our plights. I used Maslow's, I used Abraham Maslow's theory of human motivation to try to figure out and game plan how to do better or how to service the Black community, us figure out how to give each other love and belongingness and everything that we don't have in this country, but how to like push our resources together to get those things. So these are some of the images from that exhibition. I'm zooming through because I have a lot of slides. I told you guys, I'm not good at editing. So a lot of these pieces are just to send messages to the Black community here in Pittsburgh and abroad that are just going through hard times. This is a piece about me birthing my daughter, and this is about communal living. Currently working on, I was invited by Alicia Wormsley to be a part of the launch team for her residency, Sybil Shrine. It is absolutely the thing that has helped me through COVID thus far, just networking with all these Black mothers. Hold on, I'm like totally, let me see.
Hey, Naomi, we only have just a few more seconds left.
Okay, hold on. Oh,
no. I know there's a lot to cover.
No, I know so much. I'm sorry, I tried to Zoom, guys. Okay, yeah. So this is so Black mothers are able to get the resources that they need that we aren't usually given as Black women, and so that we don't have to give up being artists. And this is the group we meet every Sunday. And this is Danielle Brown, mother of, I'm sorry, I'm rushing, but I'll talk, guys. And if you have time, go down to the Hill and sit with this lady on Freedom Corner, but I'll stop sharing.
Well, Naomi, that was certainly nourishing. You know, you talked about the struggle and strength of being a Black woman and being a Black artist. So thank you. And yes, I think we all miss those gatherings in person where we can hug and touch and enjoy and celebrate all of the emotions. And I know it's hard to do this in this virtual reality, but thank you for what you're doing. And thank you also for sharing your beautiful brown baby with us too, presentation as well. So I know we had to abbreviate your talk, but don't worry, we'll answer more questions in the Q&A. So for folks who might have questions for Naomi, again, we're moderating the chat. We've already received a few questions. We'll hold them until the Q&A portion at the conclusion of the event. I'd like to invite Angela Washko to the screen. Angela Washko has devoted her work to creating new forms for discussions about feminism in a variety of forms and contexts. Notably, since 2012, Angela has used the World of Warcraft gaming platform to speak out against the misogynistic and oppressive depiction of women in the video game industry. She is currently an associate professor of art at Carnegie Mellon University, and her artistry has been highlighted in The New Yorker, The Guardian, The Times Magazine, Art in America, and many more. Angela, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much. I'm gonna screen share, so give me a moment. Speaking of going into the virtual, I'm really gonna go into virtual environments with my talk. 1 second. Hopefully, sorry, 1 second. Should be screen 2. Somebody mind just confirming that they see a slide? Okay.
You're good.
Great. Yes. Okay. And I'm timing myself, so hopefully I stay on task. Okay. So yeah, thanks so much for having me on this panel. It's such an amazing group of artists and organizers doing such important work, and it's been really inspiring getting to be a part of it. So background on me, I'm a research-based artist and organizer, making work in a lot of different contexts and forms, spanning video games, performance, writing, video art, and interventions, often within digital environments. I also organize exhibitions, community workshops, and as you heard, I teach at CMU. Today's panel is called Women's Work, and I was asked to just mention what that means for me in my practice. And I guess I would interpret those terms through my practice by saying that I'm committed to doing the work of trying to make space for women's perspectives and experiences in environments that have erased, ignored, or even been transparently hostile toward them. So I wanted to talk about 3 projects briefly, which will hopefully give some insight into my evolution as an artist. And I am a gamer. I've been playing video games for a long time. I started playing World of Warcraft in 2006. The massively multiplayer online role-playing game, WoW, has a history of having a player base that's notoriously hostile toward women, members of the queer community, and players of color. After 6 years of playing the game and being sexually harassed and assumed biologically inferior at playing video games because I'm a woman, by the predominantly straight white male player base of the game, I decided in 2012 to do something about it. So for 4 years, I created what I saw as performative interventions inside World of Warcraft, this game that you're hopefully seeing right now. Operating under the title, the Council on Gender Sensitivity and Behavioral Awareness in World of Warcraft, I brought players together to talk about why the community had become so exclusionary toward its most marginalized players, especially in this otherwise fantasy environment where you can play as an orc or a cow, human hybrid, or a panda. Over the course of several years, the council met regularly and took up space, creating highly visible public discussions around these issues. Although this work primarily takes place as a performance online, it's often also presented in live theater contexts for live audiences, and also installation versions as well, where I try to make the physical environment echo the feel of the game environment, especially for the many people in art viewing audiences who have never played a game like World of Warcraft. A lot of my projects involve creating discussions about feminism in spaces that are hostile toward women. Many of the most transparently anti-feminist men that I talked to in World of Warcraft told me that they were members of something called the manosphere. After exploring what this anti-feminist online community was, I discovered one of its leaders, Roosh V, who had been called the most infamous misogynist on the internet. And as you might know, he has a lot of competition for that title. Roosh V spends his time traveling around the world, teaching men how to perform in particular ways in order to have sex with as many women as possible across geographic, language, and cultural barriers as quickly as possible. And here's just a selection of his culturally specific seduction guidebooks. As I was reading through his books and his blogs, one thing really stuck out to me. In all of his accounts of his detailed sexual exploits, the perspectives of the women he explicitly talks about in his books and blogs are never represented. So I decided to pursue creating a web and book project to bring visibility to the perspectives of the women on the receiving end of Roosh's pickup art practice, which is this. After distributing this call for these women and starting to collect stories from women who'd encountered pickup artists, I decided ultimately that I wanted to do a deeper investigation toward trying to understand his tactics, motivations, and the appeal that he and his practice held for his growing community of male followers. I wanted to confront Roosh about his views and hold him accountable for his bang guides, which encourage men to harass women and engage in sexual acts against women's consent. I also hoped to do something which felt increasingly impossible online at the time, and maybe even more so today, but to facilitate a conversation between polarized viewpoints and communities which almost never interact with each other. So on the one end, the digifeminist community that was happening online and the virtual manosphere. So I ended up conducting a very difficult 2-hour-long interview with Roosh over Skype, which you're seeing some video from right now. There's a lot more to say about this project. I've written a lot about it and it's been published online. And it also resulted in a harassment campaign launched by the manosphere directed at me, which had a big impact on my life. The sort of last art project I'll talk about is informed by my experiences with Roosh V, as well as a desire to create a video game, sort of going back to video games, which represented experiences and perspectives not currently addressed or acknowledged by the mainstream male-dominated game development industry. So, The Game is a video game I created through which I attempted to create a map of the broader field of professional pickup artists. In The Game, players, regardless of personal gender identity and sexuality, are put into the position of experiencing a common scenario that femme-presenting people experience, having their personal space invaded when it's unwelcome by men who feel entitled to it. All of the dialogue in this game is constructed from actual word-for-word instructions written by infamous professional pickup artists, and also situations from their own hidden camera footage that they shoot when they're in clubs and then sell to their devoted followers they cultivate online without the permission of the women that they're filming. As a player and as the target of pickup artists' attention, in this game you can make a broad range of decisions, from opting to hook up with different pickup artists in multiple locations to attempting to get away from them immediately, which I'll say is the option that most players choose, at least the first time that they play. I'm invested in exploring the complexity of these practices and not oversimplifying them in the way that mainstream media does, and instead mapping them out and making their complexities more accessible, as well as putting femme-presenting people's experiences with these coercive behaviors at the forefront of the discussion around courtship and consent. I made this game also because I think having a better understanding of how these practices work is essential to recognizing them and also dismantling them. I often show the work as an installation, sort of paired with the research materials used to make the work. It's really important to me that people who play the game and experience the work understand that what I'm representing is not fiction, that these are actual, professional, often highly paid seduction coaches who teach men how to sexually assault and harass women. And I want the work to hold them accountable. It's available in full online to play for free, because it's also important to me that it's not just something that lives in art spaces alone. And then finally, since we're here talking about Pittsburgh specifically, I wanted to talk very briefly about some organizing activities I facilitated and been involved in here. So throughout my artistic practice, I've been concerned with the oppressive conditions for women within the fields of technology, media, and entertainment. And these conditions are certainly even more oppressive for women of color in these fields. But as a regional organizer for the Art and Feminism Wikipedia Editathon, I've been committed to improving the representation of women and non-binary people within Wikipedia. I've organized 3 large editathons committed to collectively identifying women and non-binary artists who are not present within Wikipedia and teaching participants how to create and edit Wikipedia pages in an effort to confront the biases embedded in Wikipedia and increase the visibility of women artists whose practices and histories may be in danger of being forgotten. In 2017, I worked on an exhibition that I saw as an intervention within Carnegie Mellon as a university. As a new faculty member at CMU, I was struck by the strong presence of the tech industry and its male-dominated culture that felt largely unopposed or unchallenged on campus, and not within the School of Art, but within the campus broadly. Hacking, Modding, and Remixing as Feminist Protest was a 3-floor exhibition I curated at the Miller ICA, which is like right in front of the Gates Center for Computer Science. The show included 22 artists creating artistic interventions within the tech and entertainment industries that brought visibility to women's perspectives and experiences that had been marginalized, ignored, or dismissed by those industries. It was important to me that the show was intergenerational, so included works that were made from 1978 to 2016, and also that the show was intersectional. So it included trans, queer, indigenous, and women of color across a wide variety of global perspectives. I wanted the show to make it clear that despite the fact that women are so frequently excluded from being producers within the tech and entertainment industry, that women have resisted that position and created dialogue with the artifacts of these industries, inserting their point of view through hacking, modding, and remixing them. I'm like, I don't have time to talk about individual works, but if you haven't seen Mohawk artist Gawanati's Time Traveler TM video series, I would definitely recommend it. And I'm running out of time, but yeah, I recently started a performance platform, an event series with Scott, Andrew, and Jesse Stiles this past year. I've been really inspired by the different performance communities in Pittsburgh, and I wanted to do something with my role connected to CMU and sort of take some funds from the university and put them back into Pittsburgh performance venues and emerging performers, creating more dialogue between the university and artists not connected to the institution. So we've been inviting emerging artists with works in progress to present new live performance works. Each event includes artists working across live art disciplines. But yeah, we started the series with the intention to become a safe space for failure, a supportive place to perform works that might not be figured out yet, and incorporate conversation about those works into the event framework. And we have an event on Sunday, failsafe.live. We're going to be virtual. We'll probably fail a lot at that, but hopefully not too much. And yeah, moving forward with the Failsafe project as an organizer, I want to invest a lot of time into slowing down and spending more time with the different performance communities here. So thank you.
Thanks, Angela. And we are at time, so that was a perfect segue. And there's a lot to unpack there, and we've gotten a couple of questions asking about techniques that will transition into the Q&A. So more to come on that. The questions, we see them in the chat box. Last but certainly not least, for our last 10-minute artist talk, we're going to hear from Christiana Dolores, who is a multi-platform, multidisciplinary artist. And for over 20 years, Christiana has employed sound, vision, text, and performance as storytelling tools to create radical, controversial, and cultural engagements. At the root of her practice are questions about our humanity as she rewrites new mythologies. She is a force in the Pittsburgh art scene and beyond, and her work has been celebrated by the Pittsburgh Business Times, August Wilson Center, Trinidad Theater Festival, among others. Christiana, the floor is yours. Please feel free to share your screen.
Hi, so Andrea, first, can you let me know if you can see my screen?
I can see it. You're good.
Awesome. First off, it's truly an honor to be engaged with the Andy Warhol on this really incredible exhibit, considering Andy Warhol's history with women. I've had the honor and privilege to do various projects at the Andy Warhol, so it's really great to be engaged again, thanks to Maritza Mascara, who was working there at the time. I'm gonna start this off with my name, because one's name is very, very important. Dolores is my middle name, and it's Spanish for pain, and it's the name my mother gave me when she was giving birth as a German woman in a French hospital, and nobody was there. So I'm claiming that. And then Madame harkens to the fact that I was born in Orleans, France, and that my godmother, who kept my mother fed during her time of pregnancy with me, was a prostitute, and that I am an elder, and I've grown tired of asking people to respect me, so I've put respect into my name, hence Madame Dolores. I'm sharing the screen because I'm really interested in research and statistics, and this plays into value, the value of women's work. So the Pew Research did a survey, and since we are in America, let's talk about Americans. Americans are much more likely to use powerful in a positive way to describe men than women. And I'm just gonna let you sit with that for a second, because when you think of, at least when I think of women artists, I do think of power. And so when we think of value and we think of the reason why they're not in so many museums, this comes down to psychology for me, so. This was a band that I was in for 13 years. I was one of the few women of color fronting a type of eclectic rock band. I wrote the lyrics and sang and assisted with production with Herman Soy Sauce Pearl for 13 years. So it's something I'm very proud of, and it was definitely a very lonely spot in my life, because you're one of the few, if any. At that time, I was co-running Sun Crumbs, a nonprofit organization with Christina Springer, who's also an incredible artist. And one of our exhibits was called Womb Journeys. It featured 5 women artists, and it was an exhibition exploring abortion, miscarriage, and pregnancy. And this was part of a whole series that I did, very abstract, but utilizing a paper that I can't find anymore, this type of oatmeal paper where you can burn it and create this kind of shading. So I really am, if anyone out there knows where to get this oatmeal paper, that would be awesome. This was from a show called Radio Ego. It was a solo retrospective of my surrealist drawings and objects. These are drawings that I had in a very small journal that I took with me everywhere, including my travels to Alaska when I worked in the fisheries, to my time in upstate New York working on a farm, and then traveling to the Southwest, living out of a Volvo. So I translated these very small drawings into very big pieces, like 5 by 6 kind of experiences. But this all began with I can't wait to be invited to have a solo exhibition. I can't wait for you to decide that I am the flavor of the month. I can't wait for white people, white women who run things, to suddenly decide that my work is worthy of a solo exhibition. So I just went ahead, like many of the speakers on this panel, and booked it at the Garfield Artworks, which I don't think is open anymore. And it involved inviting several artists to create paintings as exquisite corpses. I also had a birthday party for Salvador Dali as an homage to him. Not particularly an artist I fully love given his issues, but I love his work. So yeah, it's a challenge. It's a challenge. And during this time, I was performing with at least 4 or 5 musical acts, and one of them involved Ken Foley, and he and I would work together. And it was drums and poetry, and I had this poem called Ophelia, the Mulatto Slave, and Stanley Denton heard it and convinced me to turn it into a play. I received funding from the Pittsburgh Foundation to do that groundwork, to actually write the play, which took me about 4 years. It involved a lot of research, and including a trip to New Orleans after the levees broke, which was also just so, that experience informed some decisions made with the play. This play was a really incredible experience, but it ended so poorly. It was interesting as the play went on how different white people or Black people would leave the production screaming or angry about who the hell do I think I am? And then the producer unfortunately wrote bad checks to everyone instead of being honest about the fact that we weren't able to raise the funds. And I found myself in a situation where I was blamed for all of it. I was slandered. I believe one actor told me to stop shucking and jiving, so there were racial components to it. I was so upset about that experience that in my bathrobe, I went outside and I took all of the plays except one and put them into the grill and set them on fire. I'm glad that I saved one because I received communication from Professor Mr. Smart from Trinidad, and he put the play on, and it won second place during their Trinidad Theater Festival. We're talking about some 10 years after the actual debut, which was in 2006. The Power exhibition, which featured over 20 women artists at the Future Tenant Gallery, and also I engaged Linda Babcock, a professor at CMU, to talk about how women are not great at negotiating their needs. This was an incredible experience, also given the fact that the Future Tenant was going through some renovations, and I had to communicate to the men who were working in the space, and I was giving them what I wanted, and I would come into the space the next day and they didn't do anything I said, and this would involve sometimes a shouting match. And then I was also told at some point, because of the floor in front of the Future Tenant Gallery was sinking, that I was told that I would not be able to open for my reception. And I remember responding with like, are you trying to tell me that I don't have the power to open an exhibit about women's power? So, we're constantly having to navigate barriers and blockages. And so I will say that exhibit did open on time. My second solo musical release was Amor Fati, and I presented it as a performance piece at the Pittsburgh Cultural Trust. As a performer, what is important to me is the energy exchange with people, and I have grown to dislike performing because of the usage of phones, and I felt that I don't use my whole body and spirit to perform to machines. And so I videotaped what would normally be all of us on stage. I videotaped it in my basement, had it projected, and I proceeded to go through cycles of where I would sit very quietly or engage with myself on the stage. And what was fascinating about doing that was, because I'm known as a performer, the amount of disappointment, even slightly anger that came at me for not showing my face, because I wore a certain outfit to, I believe at the time, mourn various deaths at the hands of police. And so I hid my face. And people were very, very upset about the way I went about that. Wanting to talk about my experience of being a first-generation immigrant, being a person raised by a German woman in a Black community. I wrote 12 women artists and asked if they would be interested in talking about imperialism, colonialism, and white supremacy within our context, which is not quite here. And, in some aspects, we're perceived as perfunctory minorities assimilating, and that is not the case. So hence the Not White Collective. We may be mistaken for or assumed to be acting as white, but we are not, and we reject it. This is a piece from the Book of White People, and I collected all the different celebrity apologies, which I will say that I can no longer find online because, they do a very good job of scrubbing things from the internet. But, I utilized white and Black and gray to kind of show the repetition. And, part of the Book of White People is talking about, it feels like white people talk from a book because they all say the same things. And in this exhibit was, it's more of an experience. It's an installation. It involves paintings. I got less than a minute left, so I'm just going to move forward. This last piece is, last year I released an album, and I was reticent to do so because people don't buy music, but this was a culmination of 2.5 years of making music ever since He That Shall Not Be Named But Pretends to Be the POTUS got into office. I found myself wondering how I was going to emotionally survive this hellish journey. And I typically work with collaborators, but this was the first time that, I bought a new iPhone, I bit the bullet, bought the phone, and I saw GarageBand, and I began composing my own works. And so we are 3.5 years in and 700 songs. Just really, I write if I experience a memory, a trigger, just really sharing my experience of life as vulnerably and honestly as I can. I think that's and that's something that I really appreciate with Christina's, Naomi's, and Angela's work, is this type of honesty and vulnerability. And I'll conclude with that.
Wow, Christiana, or Madame Dolores, thank you for, you took us on a journey there. And it's so great to see what you've done in calling out white supremacy in the arts. And in your talk, you had mentioned this theme, this dynamic of power and value. So thank you for sharing that, because that's a great segue to the Q&A portion that we're going to transition the discussion to. We have a lot of questions from viewers who've been tuning in, so thank you so much for sharing your comments and questions. And I just want to just summarize some of the key themes that we've heard tonight before we segue into the Q&A. Christina Lee talked about the need and the importance of representation as a curator, and the absence of women artists in her earlier years prompted her to make sure that women were supported, are highlighted in her own work, which is a great concept. Naomi, you highlighted again the struggle and strength of being a Black woman, and also being a Black artist. And you also wove in your presentation how you've sustainably used your materials as well, and that's embedded in your practice. And not only did you mention the struggle, but also the joy of being an artist. So thank you for reminding us that there is joy in your work as well. And Angela, you've talked about these interventions in the gaming industry, which are critical. And Naomi, thanks for sharing your camera. I'm going to ask all of the panelists to share their cameras as well as we transition into this moderated discussion. And then last but not least, again, Christiana, you talked about, how are women negotiating for their needs, especially in this arts industry. And one of the prevalent themes that have been woven into this discussion is the concept of really, creating space, holding space, demanding space, and even infiltrating space. Christiana, you talked about, there's a point in your presentation where you mentioned you didn't want to wait for someone to ask you or to give you a spot to host your own exhibit. Can you tell us a little bit more about that process, about that decision, what was like, and maybe how you've just created space in other areas too?
I will say this is before I actually became an arts administrator. So there's a lot of knowledge you gain working in the belly of the beast, as I call it. I looked around and I saw white women and white men getting everything that they needed. We have to understand, I'm going to put this in the context of years. This was 80s, 90s. And so what you all are experiencing did not exist. A lot of these things, a lot of the grants did not exist. You were on your own. If you didn't hustle and make it happen, it was not happening. It was not going to happen. And something my mom tells me all the time, where there's a will, there's a way. And that guides me in everything that I do, because I turn over every stone. I turn over everything. I go over, under. I'm like Parliament. I go over, under, around it to get what I want. I will not be stopped. I don't believe in these concepts, because I know that people go into rooms and they speak words and they write them down and they want other people to believe them. I don't believe a lot of your stuff. I did not stand up with my hand on my heart and do this every day in school. I don't believe it. I got detention for that. Why should I believe that? And why should I think that it would ever take care of me, care about me, support me, and do anything for me? Mm. So what's wonderful now is that there is such a community of artists, of Black artists, brown artists, women artists that are way more connected than what was happening back then. I mean, it was you were very alone. And if you wanted something to happen, you had to make it happen. There were no complaints, no sitting around going like, oh, nobody's looking at me. I don't care. I'm going to get what I want. So yeah, some of that.
Got it. No, thank you. And thank you for also highlighting the intergenerations of the work that's being done. That's helpful. I'd like to bring in Angela into this conversation, because in your presentation, you talked about these staged interventions and also holding men accountable for their actions of perpetuating this, oppressive or misogynistic representation of women in the video gaming industry. Angela, a couple of questions from folks in the audience asking, how did you negotiate safely when doing this kind of research? And what questions or issues popped up that you didn't necessarily expect during your project?
Oof. Yeah, the safety question. I mean, I think, being raised in a rural area and like being introduced to the internet, in my, I guess, late teens and realizing how that changed, like what points of view I was open to, was super formative, and super important to me. So I think I had a pretty romantic, I guess, idea about like the possibilities of the space of the web for kind of feminist liberation, like the sort of cyber feminist movement, like we'll all just be, genderless slime, sex adventures, etc. And obviously now we know more than ever, the identities and the politics of physical space are still encoded in every aspect of our digital experience. So I guess coming into some of these projects with this sort of utopian, like if we just we can just have this open dialogue and talk about it and work it out, and then eventually if we do it enough, it will get fixed. I think I had to develop much better boundaries and much more of an understanding of what type of communication I'm willing to accept and also support. I think after a pretty intense year of a harassment campaign from the manosphere, I had to decide which spaces I wanted to be private in, like deciding to not accept harassment as an acceptable form of communication. So I guess I think that comes with age too, being much more willing to set boundaries, and also wanting to be example also of what you're fighting for, not just because in a lot of what I was doing, I had to perform submissiveness in a way that I'm very uncomfortable with. And at the time, it felt like this like interventionist strategy that I was also inheriting from all of this like super white male interventionists, like the yes men, who I worked for and learned a lot from. But there are tactics that they can employ because in every space they go into, they're recognized as valid because they're white dudes in suits. So, that not having that and the way that affects one's vulnerability just by not being seen as valid automatically in a space, it changed, how I operated, and wanting to be much more transparent about, the types of spaces that I was fighting for, not just trying to sneak in, but also setting an example.
Got it. Infiltrating, setting the example, demanding, taking up space. It's key. I want to make sure that we're bringing in our earlier panelists, Naomi and Christina. A question again on this theme of, defining your value and the dynamics of power and your work. Art institutions play a critical role in determining and assigning the value of our artists' work. Yet oftentimes, as Christina, you mentioned, women aren't represented in whether it's the galleries, and that statistics you mentioned that 13.7% of women make up women, 13.7 women percent. I'm messing up the statistics, Christina, my apologies, but the statistic it basically shows that not enough women are being represented in galleries in North America and in Europe. So I'd like your thoughts on this of, how do you assess and assign your own value? And how do you, again, create that space? Christina, that question's really for you.
So I work a lot in freelance illustration, and I do some freelance design work. And the first advice that I'm even bad at doing this myself is just value yourself like a, you know, like a white guy would, like, honestly, like, and like just adopting that mentality, like whenever someone offers to buy a piece, or if someone like asks you for a quote for like a freelance illustration job, always ask for more money, always negotiate. And, you know, I'm still learning to do this. It's really hard for me to perform as a white man in assigning value for myself. And like, it's really easy for me to cheer on other people, like my other female colleagues, like, you know, just ask for more money, like, it's easy, like, don't worry about it, like, what's the worst can happen? I'm still learning, but every time I've asked for more money, or any time that I've, you know, adopted that mentality, like, it's actually paid off. So I think that's just what we all need to, you know, like, I hate to gender it. Like, I hate gendering it, but at the same time, we just need to value ourselves more. And I think if we all develop this mentality, then, you know, we will start getting paid as much as men do. But in the meantime, I think, like, the best way, I think, to value yourself is, you know, always ask for more money, and always value yourself highly. I think confidence is, it's really hard. I think confidence is harder now than it is today with the internet. You know, it's really easy, I think, to scroll on your Instagram feed and see someone who's like way hotter and way more talented than you are. And it might lead for yourself to, you know, value yourself less. But I think, you know, it's the creative industry. The creative industry is, it's hard. There's a lot of unpaid internships, and always ask for more money. That's just the mentality that I have. I'm still trying to, you know, be full for it. But it works. It really does.
Mm-hmm. Thanks, Christina. And Naomi, come on into the conversation. I'm really interested because you mentioned, especially in your discussion, you know, your peers, your white peers were being compensated, or you noticed a discrepancy between how advanced you were and just the divide between what you were receiving. So please weigh in on this, and maybe even what resources, or how can the Pittsburgh community better support Black artists, Black and brown voices in the art scene?
Well, I think first of all, the institutions should listen. That's number one. I think a lot of times when I looked around, I felt a little crazy because, like, you kind of want to say something, but it's like, are they going to say that I'm like, are they going to gaslight me? So I feel like if we listen to the people that are telling us what they're telling us and try to, like, figure out, you know, the truth in it. I think a lot of us don't realize that capitalism is racial in nature. It is genderized, like, it exists, it operates, all of it. It has to have different groups of people delegated to different roles. And so, like, we need to together just, like, pull those roles apart. Black means worker. That's what it means. Mother or woman is another worker, another type of worker within the system. So to be a Black woman, you're a double worker. It's certain things mean owner. So it's just things like that that we just need to all be honest. We all know it's true. And so we just need to tell each other these truths, look each other in the eyes, and realize what we need to do to change these things. Because people are dying, and it's disgusting that it's exactly how our system works, but it's working perfectly, and we need to, like, dismantle it, basically. So that's all I'll say on that. Yeah.
No, that's great. Dismantling systems and shaking them up. All right. You know, Naomi, I'm going to stick with you here because there's another question that came in from the audience of just the concept of care. How has that evolved in your art practice, and what does that look like for you currently?
I'll say my care has shifted. Care used to be so sweet, and, like, the word just would evoke all this awesomeness for me, but now it just means work to me. I keep talking about work. But yeah, I have to care from morning till night. So I lay down at night about 2 people that can't care for themselves. And it's a great gift. I love it. I enjoy it, but it also has taken and shifted my care away from my art practice. And so I'm always constantly like negotiating times with my husband and figuring out how to just pour back into my work, because it literally is my life source. Like, it makes me feel great. It takes away all my stress, and it also like brings me money. So, so the work has to be done. But also caring for my children has evolved and made my work so much better. I don't know how to. It's a weird exchange, but yes, I can't spend 8 hours in the studio. But when I do sit down and do work, it's that much more meaningful, and the work is much more powerful. So they have given me that. But yeah, care is it's just everything. Because like I said, it's the thing that has kept me alive to this point. Someone cared for me. Someone took care of me. And I just get to do the same for my children and others, because there's so many people in this world that don't have a care or support system at all. And I love the opportunity as an artist to be able to do that for other people.
Thank you. Anyone else want to weigh in, please do. And if not, we'll switch over to another question that's coming up from the audience. Angela, this goes back to you. A few questions about just the terminology that you had used during your presentation. One was modding. Can you describe what that is? And then also in your discussion of the game, can you explain what a hookup artist is?
Yes. Okay. So it's pickup artist. I probably know I was like trying to cram so much in and talking so fast. But yeah, pickup artist is a term that describes kind of a community of predominantly men, although now there are woman-identified pickup artists, but predominantly straight men who typically get paid to teach other men how to seduce women. They have a variety of different sort of brands and differences in their strategies and how they package them. But yeah, so the game includes several of the most famous and several of the most financially successful pickup artists and details all of their practices in their own words. And then the other question was about modding. So yeah, in the framework of hacking, modding, and remixing as feminist protest, that exhibition, modding there refers specifically to the practice of modifying existing game code, so video game codes or software code, to create, in the context of the show, to create new meaning. So for example, the Skawanati work that I showed very briefly, she's modifying Second Life and altering it to insert indigenous narratives, both historical and futurist narratives. Or there was another game in a modded game in the show, which was a modification of the classic Nintendo game, the Super Mario Brothers, which modified it to make it a Hello Kitty world. So all of the the figures were from the Hello Kitty universe and very, very like cute and sweet. So yeah, that's modding.
Got it. Thank you, Angela. Switching back to Christina, someone was asking about your curatorial work. How do you balance your role as an artist, producer, and as a curator?
It's really hard. I don't have a lot of time, basically. It takes a lot of work to do both. But I think I found that both of them actually feed quite well into my practice. Like as a curator, when I'm looking for artists that inspire me, obviously these artists really influence my work as well. So it really is just like a natural fit to my illustration practice. But it is like super hard to, manage all of that. I would say since we are in the pandemic, I haven't had to organize any exhibits because we can't have any. But with All Right Press, that will be sort of like my next curatorial endeavor. I think like I'll try to figure something out. Like it feels like we have so much more time that at the same time it feels like we also don't have that much time. There's a really high barrier access to everything. Almost like scheduling sometimes feels impossible because there's too much time. I don't know if you guys do the same as me too, but it's a challenge. You know, like what I do is I write down a lot of lists. I'm the most organized, disorganized person ever. Like I'll stick to systems for maybe like 2-3 days, and then like I'll make lists and then I won't, and then I'll make the lists again. And I think just trying to find good outlets for my stress is probably the best thing that I can do at this point. I also help organize a community print shop called Foolproof Studio. So that on top of everything is really difficult for me to manage. So I've been journaling every day, trying to FaceTime with my friends as much as I possibly can. I think the best way to manage your time is to honestly just trying to find ways to relieve stress that don't involve social interaction. That used to be my main stress outlet, and now I don't have it. So now I'm baking, journaling, and once you find those activities to sort of like ground you, like it makes time management a lot easier to do.
Excellent. Thank you for that. All right, there are a couple of more questions coming in. I know we are almost at time. We're going to have time for 2 more questions. And Christiana, I want to bring you back into this because a few of, you touched on this earlier, and a few panelists have mentioned this too, on the importance of intergenerational solidarity and connection for women. Why is that so important in feminist practice?
That is important in order to share knowledge, share resources, mutually lift each other. I want to talk about like this reclaiming of space. Let's be honest, how we don't see each other because we are so distracted by barriers that we are not able to, older artists are not able to see younger and vice versa. So, we find ourselves in a situation where we have to be so intentional about making sure that we can see each other's work, feel it, sense it, lift it. And, the thing that I learned from the Power exhibit was how many women were suffering in silence. And I say that they were dealing with very caustic situations with institutions or, whatever you might imagine, and trying to present their work as women. And they told no one. So it's very important also to be vocal about what you are going through and connect with anybody that you think can help you to get through that, to assist you. So that's, I started off as a 20-year-old being embraced by a woman of visions and being lifted by these elder women. And that is what I take that lesson, and that's what I share. And I make sure that whatever I do is also lifting women in just about anything. Like you can call me and just tell me anything. I need help with this or that. Do you got any chalk or canvas? I don't know. You can just call me.
Sharing the resources. Well, Christiana, on that note of hope and lifting and ending maybe with some levity, because we've talked about some hard concepts, right? Oppressive nature in the gaming industry, the struggle and strength of being artists, defining your value, reclaiming your worth, reclaiming your space. On a lighter note, what does hope look like as artists? What is your hope for Pittsburgh art scene and beyond? I'd like all of us to answer that question.
Well, first off, hope looks like these panelists that I'm sharing. You guys are amazing, and it's so incredible to see your work. That's my hope, to see you doing what you're doing, achieving what you're achieving, making the money that you need to make, growing in the manner that you need to grow to be that incredible artists, woman artists, or whatever you decide. So that's my hope, you know. It was when you're the only Black or brown person in every single college class, and I've gone to lots of colleges, this right here is beautiful to me, to see your faces and to see that the incredible work you're doing. So that's my hope. And I'm gonna mute.
I guess as someone who's, you know, working within an institution like Carnegie Mellon, I'm hopeful that institutions will become much more self-critical and much more self-reflective about the change that needs to happen, and much more holding themselves accountable, and creating structures that don't just, I guess, look outside of the city of Pittsburgh. I think that's something that when I came in to CMU, someone like Susie Silver, who works on TQ Live, which is at the Warhol. I saw her as someone who was engaged with thinking about how to leverage the resources of the university to bring in such a wide variety of artists who weren't connected to that context, and did so without really the real support for doing it. And often, how do I want to say this? I want to see more support and validation for the work that's happening in the city, not just a focus on people who are doing work in the city and having it talked about in larger press or larger institutions, and going elsewhere. Like, appreciate it while it's here, and be a part of that that support system, and be truly engaged and not just do it on paper. So I think from where I'm at, that those conversations are definitely happening, and the students want that as well. Many of the faculty do as well. So I'm hopeful about that.
Thanks, Angela. Naomi or Christina?
I can go. Hopeful that artists can eat and keep creating and have places to live. I know too many homeless artists. It's not funny, I'm smiling while I say that. But no, just hoping the market here in Pittsburgh becomes amicable to artists, and they're able to take care of their families and still continue to maintain their practice, because there's so many artists that have important things to say that we all need to listen up on and hear, that could change and transform our lives, and help the future generations coming up to hear Christiana talk about, all the things she went through. It's very exciting and uplifting to me to know how the landscape has changed a little bit so that I could thrive, so just more people able to inhabit the space and call themselves artists and do the work of an artist.
Naomi. And Christina, we'd love to hear from you.
I guess, Angela's mention of institutions being more accountable. I often think of gatekeepers in the world of art or in creative industries, and I often think about how they're mainly white and male, and my hope is that we destroy all gatekeepers. I just don't. You would think that with the internet, that gatekeepers wouldn't exist in the creative industry, but they still 100% do. If they still have to exist, I just hope that the face changes. I've been reading a lot. I've been seeing a lot on Instagram, on social media, a lot of students at art schools. I think the one that I've been reading a lot about is actually Black at SVA. School of Visual Art is a major commercial art school. They produce a lot of graphic designers and illustrators, very prominent ones, and there's a lot of stories of super racist teachers in class just being awful to any non-white students, specifically to brown and black students, but just awful examples of that. And, you know, it makes me happy that people are coming out and sharing their stories. And I feel so awful that this has had to happen to them. But at the same time, I think when we start holding these gatekeepers accountable, the landscape of the art community, you know, not just in Pittsburgh, but worldwide, will change. So that's honestly my hope, is just removing all these gatekeepers and eliminating the power structure in the art world, so we could have a more equitable arts community. That's my hope.
Christina, that is a perfect note to end on. Thank you so much to all the panelists for providing. Oh, thank you, Christiana. It was a pleasure to be here with you tonight. I'm going to cue and invite Jose Diaz back onto the screen to provide closing remarks. And by all means, make sure you follow, whether it's on Instagram, social media, the wonderful artists who were here tonight to share their stories, their journeys, and most importantly, their artwork. Please follow, support, and amplify their voices too. Jose, can you close us out?
Yeah, thank you. Wow, I don't even know how to follow that up, but that was incredible. Thank you, Naomi, Christina, Angela, Andrea. That was incredible. I really learned so much. And it's wonderful that we had so many people join us this evening. We had 75 households watching us, and from not just Pittsburgh, which makes it even more incredible for me. These are important conversations. They're conversations that I'm having with my curatorial peers across the country. Change is happening, and I think people are listening. So I'm really appreciative that we did have this conversation tonight. And I want to invite you to another event before we wrap up. Our next event is July 28th, 2 to 3 p.m. We're going to have a virtual chat with Patrick Moore, the director of the Warhol. He's going to interview Stephen Allen Bennett and Dr. Elaine Melody-Schmidt. They're founders of the Bennett Collection of Women Realists. They're the sponsors of the show FemTouch and our programming tonight. And we'll talk about their collection and its relationship to our new exhibition, FemTouch. We did record this talk, so it'll be on our YouTube channel, so we'll be sure to share it, and we hope that you can share it as well once you get the links. But thank you so much. I appreciate everyone's time, and we look forward to seeing you again soon.